Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's Full Press Radio Live on a Tuesday. I had to think about the day for a minute. I kind of got a little confused. I have a cat running across my desk right now. You would think by now I would be used to it and I'd be able to adjust on the fly, but I was rattled there for just a moment. But yes, it is Tuesday. It is October the 11th. Week 5 in the NFL is in the books. And surprise, surprise, John, we had a game last night. And a bad call by the officials. I mean, and to I'm sure many people's shock watching at home, Tom Brady was not involved in the play. So despite what people think, no, Tom Brady is not the only quarterback in the league that gets favorable calls. They all do, and then they all also get bad calls against them. It happens. It's how the officiating goes. So, good morning, John.
Good morning. I just worried that, the cat running across your desk is bad luck. I mean,
No.
Is that the case? Okay, I want to make sure about that.
No. That's true. It's just, I was worried about, some stray button pressing, maybe some, a button that might end the stream or play a soundbite that necessarily I didn't want to play. But
we all need to prepare for the possibility of significant impacts from what is now Hurricane
Ian. Or
not 3, not 4.
I mean,
not 5.
I would have been actually, what? Would have been all right with this one. Anytime that gets played, I'm okay with. But
that's not going to be outdated. That take. Give him time. He's got 4, and I think the Lakers are going to be strong this year. So
yeah,
may take a little longer than anticipated, but he may get there.
Yeah, well, wake me up when he does. So, no, obviously last night we had a pretty entertaining game. I mean, if you know the history of these two teams, I don't think the end result was really in doubt. Even when the Raiders went up 17-0, I was just sitting there thinking, like, all right, what are they going to do? What's going to happen to have this game go off the rails? And what happened was Travis Kelce, because he was. I mean, again, we used to go through this with Gronk all the time, and obviously a lot has to do with the player himself. But how do you just let him go free? You know what I mean? Like, the big difference, and I think when it's all said and done, there's going to be a distinction in tight end types, because do I think that Travis Kelce's receiving ability is hard to match? It's getting close. I mean, again, there's still plenty for him to do, but at this rate, it's hard to. Certainly, right now, I mean, he's dominant, but again, there's no one who's going to argue that things that Gronk did, certainly from a blocking and a pure tight end standpoint. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think eventually, just because how the game and how the position has evolved, there's eventually going to be a little bit more of a distinction between the two types of tight end. But I mean, Travis Kelce, how do you leave him wide open like that? The Raiders, again, sometimes there's nothing you can do. But it felt like the coverage on him was a little too. It felt very, very Belichickian. You know what I mean? Where it's like sometimes you would feel like to allow, say, Tyreek Hill to get his, because you knew he was going to get his, but then they shut everything else down and eventually even out. Well, it felt like they were trying to allow Travis Kelce to get his. They just didn't really do anything. You know what I mean? It just didn't work out that way. So I had a hell of a game. I thought Mahomes was pretty good. I mean, it was a short passing game. The deep passing really was there. We saw, several miscues or whatever. They're just not on the same page yet in that sense, because again, they don't have Tyreek Hill, so you need time to kind of figure that all out. But when it comes to the Travis Kelce mismatch against pretty much everyone, it's the same thing we saw with Gronk all those years. Like, how do you cover him? Cornerback, linebacker? Probably not. I mean, it's just a mismatch waiting to happen. You got to get creative.
Yeah, I mean, his hands are so good, right? I mean, I don't remember the guy ever dropping a ball. I mean, I'm sure he has, but his hands are so good. Running is perfect. He has a great chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. It's like he knows when to zig or zag, and Mahomes will find him. It's a lethal combination. Obviously, all 4 touchdowns were inside the 10. He didn't have a lot of yards last night, but he did have 4 touchdown receptions. And look, he got to make already number one, especially since they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. You've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who had his obligatory drop last night. He's going to have one a game. He's a speedster, and I think he could be very productive in that offense. And you got Smith-Schuster. I always screw up his name. It's got like 9 names to him. But he's a good receiver. But again, he's a second-level receiver. So you got to make Travis Kelce priority number one, and especially in the red zone. I mean, all this was done inside the 10. He didn't have a lot of yards last night. You let the guy go free and hope that Mahomes misses him. How do you miss Travis Kelce, 6'6", and he wears those yellow receiving gloves, which I always think he's going to start washing dishes at some point. It looks like those yellow gloves you buy at the supermarket to wash dishes.
Well, I don't know the exact total number, but I mean, I think, if you're into air yards and everything like that, I think you can on one hand how many air yards his touchdown passes traveled, to the line of scrimmage or from the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was just, it was a very short passing attack. And like you said, they decided not to put too much attention on Travis Kelce in the red zone. And despite all that, John, I mean, they had a chance, the Raiders, that is, to win the game. And I don't think Derek Carr played great. I don't think he played terrible. I thought he was pretty good. That
he was Derek Carr, right?
Yeah.
Derek Carr.
I mean,
that's what he is.
That throw to Devontae Adams, was that touchdown throw? That was great catch, great throw. I mean, that's peak combination right there. I thought the very nifty trick play that he did, or the little toss play that is obviously not getting as much hype because, well, it's not Patrick Mahomes, and the belief is that only Patrick Mahomes does things like that. Well, the reality of it is a lot of these quarterbacks can do things like that. It's not like he's doing it every single drive, every play, and putting his trademark next to it. So I thought he played okay. I mean, it just nothing that necessarily stood out beyond just the normal. Like, every NFL quarterback is going to have good moments. Like, every NFL quarterback at some point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not like unique to just play, but it's about the consistency of it, and it's when you do it and how you do it. Not how you do it, but like in the sense that, like, are you doing it when you're down, or are you doing it when all the pressure's on you? And that's what separates, great quarterbacks from, again, guys like Derek Carr, who are pretty good in the world and can certainly win you games and have great moments. But, are you going to win a Super Bowl with him? And that remains to be seen. But regardless of all that, they had a chance to win, down 1 because of a choice to go for it. Now, most people listening to the show are probably going to assume that I'm going to fact that they went for it. I'm actually okay with them going for it in this situation, and I'll explain why. And it's not because of some, winning percentage numbers based on analytics saying, "Oh, you go situation." No, I'm basing this decision based on just that game alone, because that's what it, in my mind, should be. The Raiders at that point were. The thing they were doing the best was running Josh Jacobs, because the Chiefs just could not stop him up the middle consistently. He was just gashing them at times, and every time they tried to force to throw the ball, it took them a little minute to just be like, "Wait, let's just go back to Josh Jacobs." That was working. So the yardage to gain was so short that I feel pretty safe banking on Josh Jacobs being able to gain that. And in that situation, with the time remaining, there was enough time that it wasn't necessarily going to be the end for the Raiders, but it was also that it could have won the game. That 1 point could have been the difference for them. So I'm okay with them going for it. Obviously, it didn't work out. So again, there's going to be questions and whatever, but that's the type of move that if you're the Raiders, okay, I'm okay with it. It didn't work, but I'm okay going for it in that situation. if they tie the game, who knows what happens from then on out. There's a lot of options, but their situation didn't really change much after that because they're down one as opposed to being tied, and they still had to stop and get the ball back, and they did that. And again, they had an opportunity, and you could argue, John. We'll get into officiating here in just a minute. You could argue, John, that they did get that opportunity, but unfortunately, a reversal on a catch near the sidelines put them out of field goal range, and it just wasn't going to happen from then on out. So, yeah, thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think going for it was a good idea because Kansas City couldn't stop their run game. And at first appearance, it looked like he got in. I thought it was like an easy 2-point conversion, but then obviously the officials did make the right call there. He fell short of the goal line.
Knee just got down right before it crossed. So,
but from our angle watching on TV, I'm like, oh, he's in because the whole pile was in, but obviously he was on the ground. Knee hit the ground before the ball crossed the goal line. So I had no problem with that either. The only thing I'm thinking of is it becomes a 5-minute game if you kick the extra point. And you have the better field goal kicker at that moment. If it comes down to field goal kicking, edge Raiders. I mean, you can go back to last year. They got into the playoffs when Carlson kicked the game-winning field goal in overtime against the Chargers, who the Raiders at that point were content to have a tie in that game to put them both in the playoffs. But, of course, the Chargers do what the Chargers always do and find ways to lose games. But, yeah, I think it was a good call because you had plenty of time left. Then you stopped them. You got it back. And that play along the sideline, Davante Adams, 99 out of 100 times, will make that catch clean.
Yeah.
Last night was the one he didn't. Originally was called a catch. Was there enough to overturn it? I think it was. And, he did the toe tap with the left foot. The right foot got in. The guy's an exquisite receiver. I mean, we talk about him all the time. It's him or Cooper Kupp are the two best receivers in football, in both of our opinions, I think. But he just didn't come down with it clean, which was a surprise. At that point, he would have been in field goal range. And Carlson is, he's not quite Justin Tucker, but then again, who is? But he's like the next level down, which is pretty darn good. I think they would have found a way to win that game, but the Raiders find ways to lose, and the Chiefs, as much as, some people will mock them, whatever, do tend to find ways to win those types of games. And that's what we kind of saw last night.
Yeah. And look, I mean, that's the difference between a team that's won and gone to Super Bowls and one that hasn't. And, we see it every week. I mean, they're always, and look, we saw it with the Patriots for years, and I'm not saying the Chiefs are the Patriots, they are not. Excuse me. There's, people say, oh, what's the difference? What's the difference? They're about the same number of wins. I mean, again, winning, and there's a huge difference between winning and not winning a championship. I mean, think about the magnitude of that minute and a half in Super Bowl 42. Think about how much the NFL history changed because the score changed in that last 90 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, so winning in this league, whether it's for franchises, whether it's for eras, whether it's for players, particularly quarterbacks, actually mostly just quarterbacks, because again, that's the appropriate way to look at it. It means far more than a marginal difference in team record. Like, great. Guess what? The Indianapolis Colts had a lot of wins during the 2000s. But are they revered and remembered as much as the Patriots? No. Even though, I mean, think about the Hall of Fame talent they had across the board and how great they were. I mean, they were great. But the success, the championships didn't follow, certainly not to the level of which you would expect from a team like that. So winning means everything in this league. The Chiefs, yes, they are right now, considering the split from the Patriots and Brady a dynasty, the AFC's cream of the crop. And you see that on a week-to-week basis when they go up against Raiders. Because like I was telling you right before we got on the air, I'm like, oh, wait, the Raiders are up 17-0. They're going to find a way to lose this. At no point did I sit there and think, oh, the Raiders got this. Because it's like, not only obviously are the Chiefs really good, but it's like, okay, what are they going to do to trip over their own feet? What are they going to do to help the other team out? And again, like I said, we saw this with teams against the Patriots all the time. And we saw how that worked out. Now, again, Kansas City, I think, has a obviously huge matchup this week against the Bills. I think they've been very up and down, the Chiefs. At times they look like the Chiefs. Other times they look like just another team. You know what I mean? And so I'm finding it really hard to kind of get a true feel for them, because I still think they really, and it doesn't become apparent every game, but I do think that they are sorely missing that big play hit from Tyreek Hill, and I think that's going to be very apparent against the Bills this week.
Yeah, because the Buffalo Bills certainly have their big play guys. I mean, this is going to be a rare situation where Buffalo.
Real quick. Sorry, I'll let you go in a second. I just want to, think about some of the deep shots Kansas City made last night and how off they were. Like, not just like a little off. Like, I'm talking about like a good 7-8 yards past the receiver, and like, I'm not blaming one player or like the receiver or the quarterback or whatever. I'm just saying like that's an issue. That, I mean, that's, that you can't survive in this league not being able to make big plays down the field. I mean, it's just how the league is now. So, sorry, go ahead.
This is the rare case where when they meet at 4:25 on Sunday, and look, that's going to be a sensational game followed by the Sunday night game of Dallas at Philadelphia. So you've got, really marquee games on Sunday. This will be the rare case where I think Kansas City doesn't have the most explosive weapons on the field. Normally they do, right?
Right.
Normally they have the better quarterback. Normally they have more weapons. They do have the better tight end in Travis Kelce, but Buffalo's wide receiver group, I think, is better than Kansas City's. And look, I can make a case that Josh Allen's at least as good as Patrick Mahomes. And I think this year he's the leading MVP candidate. So, Kansas City normally, even when they get down 17-0, they always have a chance to come back because Mahomes is good playing from behind.
Sure.
Have to give
Absolutely.
him that. He doesn't give up. He's got that it factor that the great quarterback have. But this is a case where I think Buffalo ceiling is higher than Kansas City ceiling. Just think of how we talk about, how important games are for legacies, et cetera. It appears right now, as we're heading towards the middle of October, that Kansas City and Buffalo are the two best teams in the AFC.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So the winner of Sunday's game has the inside track for home field advantage, which is a big thing, and also the fact that you get that, which no one else gets in the conference other than the number one seed. So that game is huge on Sunday.
I would say yes, but at the same time, like, I think Kansas City is a far more flawed team than Buffalo. I think Buffalo had a hiccup against Miami in a short, in a short week, but for the most part, we've seen. I mean, I know it's the Steelers, but they just absolutely dominated the Steelers 38-3, and for the most part, and for a majority of the time that they're on the field, looking like the far better team. Now, again,
right,
and Kansas City, I'm like, that's the thing. It's weird. Like, I'm impressed. Like, their resiliency is impressive, and I think far more indicative of a championship team than a lot of these other things that people get enamored with. But at the same time, I feel like some of their flaws are just like, their stability is paper thin in some of those areas. And we've seen even, yesterday against the Raiders, their offense really get shut down. And had it not been for that Jerick McKinnon run, that really tilted everything. He saw like they were third and 17 or second and 17. And Jerick McKinnon, I mean, they ran the ball. He was tackled maybe for like a 4-yard gain, and then somehow kept going, got the first down, and literally everything changed. Because all of a sudden at that, you're talking about third and long. The passing game was all out of sorts. I think Patrick Mahomes had like 70 yards at that point. And really it was just out of sorts because they couldn't hit anything downfield. Boom, run, and then I think immediately after, wide open Travis Kelce in the middle of the field. Chiefs score, all of a sudden, 17-0, potentially 20 or 24-0 turns into 17-7, and that's it. That's how the game swings. And it's like, look, at the end of the day, a win's a win, and Kansas City's going home happy, and it's something to build off of. But if you're going to sit here and ask me, long term, or what I've seen through 5 weeks, I got to agree with you. I got to maybe lean a little bit towards Buffalo, just because I think they're just more consistent across the board and have fewer flaws. Now, some of these injuries might catch up to them, and I do put a lot of stock in having gone there, done that, and when it comes time to playoffs and some of these big games, I do think that matters. But right now, if we're just looking in a vacuum at this season, Buffalo has played better across the board and looks like they have more talent. This isn't just an example of overachieving.
I think they have a better defense. I think we can all agree with that, right? And look at what they did in week 2 to Tennessee, right? They destroyed them on that Monday night. And at that point, we're like, well, Tennessee's not that good.
they made me believe that Derrick Henry was done. Like think about that. Like, I was talking about Henry being a shell of himself. I mean, look, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 3 straight since that game. I mean, it's not a great winning streak. They beat the Raiders. They beat Washington. They survived.
Look, the Raiders almost beat the Chiefs. Like,
oh yeah, no, that's the Raiders are 1-4. The Raiders, and they could be 4-1. I mean, that's how. Yeah. That's why last year you saw the Raiders win a lot of these close games in overtime, and
now
they
they're just not doing it.
That happens. That's what the league's all about. I mean, look, 21 of the 32 teams in this league have 2 or 3 wins.
Right.
So that's how. And look, Kansas City's 4-1, and people still rightfully consider them a Super Bowl contender. If or not a Justin Herbert pick and whatever happened last night, they could be staring at 2-3 with home losses to 2 divisional rivals. So Buffalo's the team that when they win, it's just like, oh, that looks different.
Yeah.
Right? It kind of looks like the 07 Patriots, where it's like, this is almost laughable what they're doing to teams. And some of them are pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So I think, obviously we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because it is only Tuesday. But that matchup is going to be pretty well. So real quick before we end the show, we're going to go for another about 5-6 minutes or so. Yesterday, obviously, or 2 days, yesterday on the show, but yesterday, last night, and then of course Sunday during the games, there was a lot of discussion about roughing the passer. And look, I mean, the silly narrative that still exists out there is that it's a favoritism towards Tom Brady, which any data that you look up when it comes to roughing the passer in some of these calls says the exact opposite. So anyone out there that's still screaming that it's a thing towards Brady can really just keep yelling at a wall, because I mean, it's not my opinion. You're just wrong. And a great example of it was last night. Derek Carr received a penalty that, again, I was told all day Sunday, not just by fans, but by, again, some of these national media broadcasts, that only Tom Brady gets. Well, no. What this is a league-wide, and we see it there were 2 calls, one against Carson Wentz and another against, and it's escaping my mind, but the video's out there and I shared it a couple times. 2 calls in Sunday alone that you could argue that were even worse than the Tom Brady one. And the irony, and look, the 2 calls, the Derek Carr one, the Tom Brady one, were they bad calls? I would agree, yes, they are bad calls. I'm not advocating to say that they were good calls. But if you look at the optics of each of them, both were similar looking to what we all agree is 2 outlawed plays, and that is, excuse me, falling with all your weight on a quarterback. That was put into place after the Aaron Rodgers collarbone injury, and no one's, I mean, who's going to argue against that? It's unnecessary to do that. So did we think that happened? Did Chris Jones do that last night? No, but it looked like it. So from an official standpoint, they're going to react to that. And look, it was a bad call. It happens. With the Tom Brady thing, the whipping around of the quarterback, in its essence, and how the rule is written, yes, you want to eliminate that from the game. And did it look like that? Sure. Was it that? No, but it's a bad call. It is what it is. There's no grand conspiracy. I mean, every team's fan base, every single week, in their losses, and unless you're Kansas City, sometimes in their wins, have been screwed over royally by the officials. And you ask every fan, and it's true, and they'll swear on their children and their mothers and their dogs and their championships and their all that stuff. They'll swear on it. But the reality is, It's not. The NFL officials have a thankless job for a league, John, that changes with the direction of the wind blowing. So what we saw a couple weeks ago with Tua created this chain reaction of, well, guess what? I guarantee you the league goes to the officials and said, look, we can't have this anymore. We got to tighten this up. We got to tighten this up. Call this tighter. Well, what do? They go out and they start calling these things tighter. And all the plays we see every single weekend, a few of them didn't pass the eye test. And guess what? It's not a conspiracy. It's not this grand scheme to help Tom Brady out, who, again, check the data, folks. It does not add up to all these suggestions from all these people. Oh, of course Tom Brady gets that call. No, it's just happenstance. Patrick Mahomes has benefited from bad calls. Aaron Rodgers has benefited from bad calls. Tom Brady has benefited from bad calls. Every quarterback in the league has benefited from bad calls. Also been hurt by bad calls. It's just how it is. It's how the game is officiated, and it's impossible to be perfect, especially when the league itself is changing sometimes week to week. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I think we all want the quarterbacks protected. Now, sometimes that means we got to find a even ground here, and sometimes we go a little bit overboard, and that's what we're seeing in these last couple of weeks. Because, if I'm not mistaken, John, a lot of these people complaining about these soft calls were also had their pitchforks at the ready to go take down the Dolphins organization and the league for allowing Tua on the field. So, yeah, make up your mind. What do you want? Do you just want to be mad at everything? Because that's what it's kind of feeling like, John. I mean, we're seeing that with the Davante Adams situation. Like, okay, he got frustrated. He did something he shouldn't have done in pushing the photographer or whatever. He apologized. He's going to get fined. If he gets suspended, I'm not going to dispute that. But, do people really think he's a bad guy? No, but people like to be angry. So guess what? We're all going to grab our pitchforks and start running and judging everything. And, that translates to real life, and it translates to how, we see these situations and narratives unfold. We see a bunch of, again, national media broadcast people get up on Twitter after the Brady quote unquote penalty and whine. I mean, there's no better way to put it. Whine, and people, fans, start echoing that. And it's like you see that same reaction. Now people get to Davante Adams. Oh, go get him. He shouldn't have done that. What an awful piece of bleep, and F this guy. And it's like, just for one day, folks, just relax, calm down, realize that not everyone's out to get you. There's not this grand conspiracy. And more often than not, the logical, easiest explanation is the right one. It's the right one, John. And I hope my at times nonsensical rambling got through to people.
It was a ramble. I'll give you that.
Yeah. I'm always ready to ramble.
You're ready. Let's get.
I got a lot of things in my head right now. I got a lot of things.
You got 5 cats to take care of. That's the biggest issue. Yeah. That's not easy. The thing with Davante, and look, I'm a Packers guy, and I wish he was still there.
I think he wishes he was still there too. So
I do. I mean, that first touchdown reception, I thought he was going to call a fair catch on that one, but he was so wide open. Yeah, I mean, he's stepped down in quality of play from his quarterback, and certainly Rodgers has stepped down in quality of play from his wide receiver.
That's the ironic thing, though, is like, there's a chance that the difference between Carr and Rodgers just this season, I'm not talking anything else, may not be as big of a difference as it was, say, last year or in many years before. So.
Yeah. And look, I think a lot of the reason he went to Vegas, not just the money, because Green Bay was ready to pay him the same. It's just, look, where would you rather live, in Las Vegas or Green Bay? I mean, that does have some sort of factor in it. But knowing, I don't know Davante Adams, but and following his career, he's a good guy. I mean, he's you never hear anything about him. He's not like a wide receiver. If this had been Antonio Brown or Tyreek Hill that did this, you'd say, okay, this is like the 9th different infraction that these guys have had. I think Davante Adams was frustrated. He probably figures he should have caught that pass clean along the sideline. And then the final play of the game, First of all, why are they taking a long shot in that situation? They got a great field goal kicker and plenty of time to set up a field goal.
Yeah.
And then he and Hunter Renfro collide like it's the Three Stooges. So someone ran the wrong route. And I'm guessing it's Renfro because Davante Adams is maybe the best route runner in the sport. So yeah, he was frustrated. He's 1-4. When's the last time Davante Adams was 1-4? So yeah, he got, but he apologized right away, and he's a good guy. I mean, there's no question about that. It's like a fine, suspension I think might be an overreach, but yeah, he apologized right away.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm not advocating for a suspension. I'm just saying, like, if they hand him a 1-game suspension, it's like, all right,
Yeah.
Am I going to argue it? No, but again, at the same time, I'm seeing people out here just like, again, grabbing the pitchforks, and that's what it is. It's all this mob mentality. We see it all, and that I guess that was my bigger point, John, is just the not only does the NFL react with the wind, but so do fans and the media. They just kind of go with the flow, and this is how we get these narratives that aren't necessarily true. So instead of trying to figure out, okay, how do we find more consistency in NFL officiating, we're trying to prove that the NFL favors Tom Brady, although very simple and easy to attain data refutes that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's such an ass backwards, non-logical way. I try to think, the way my mind works, I try to think logically, John. Doesn't always work. I'm not saying I'm perfect, although logically I feel like my conclusions do lead to perfect solutions. But again, that might be one of my flaws right there, is thinking that was a logical thing, a way of train of thought. But if you think about things logically, like we talked about it, that the Tua situation has forced the NFL's hand to emphasize this protection of quarterbacks, and you have two situations, Derek Carr and the Tom Brady one, where it looked worse than what it actually was. And the end result was, in both cases, I don't think it was a penalty. But again, the perception of, or the look of the play made it seem like it was a lot worse than what it was. Now, however, it should be looked at as how do we fix the officiating, not how do we, again, not this whole conspiracy that certain quarterbacks get favored more than others. Do you know that since 2012, I'm not misquoting this, since 2012, Patrick Mahomes has received more roughing the passer penalties than Tom Brady?
That's since 2012?
Yeah.
And Mahomes didn't start playing until 2018.
Yeah, exactly. So again, what's the narrative out there, though? That Brady gets favored and guys like Mahomes don't. And it's like, wait a minute. Come on. Like, I swear I'm out there to just be contrarian with everything. Like, sometimes I feel like, am I just out there picking fights with people? And I guess I am. I mean, that is part of it.
You are.
No, I am. But they're legitimate fights, because it's like, I look at something, and when someone says something that is so, like, objectively not true, it bugs me, and it gets under my skin, and then it just eats away at me. And next thing you know, I'm gonna look like King Viserys in the latest House of Dragons. And I know you don't get that reference, but
I don't know the reference.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Good. But anyone who does will understand what I'm saying. It's basically, you remember the Crypt Keeper from Tales of the Crypt?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm gonna wither away to. So. Or like Gollum, or God from Lord of the Rings. One of the two. Either way, that's the type of life that's being sucked out of me every time I see stuff that is just so false that it offends me as I don't know, just a person. So, but anyways, we will be back on Thursday. We're going to wrap it up here today because we did go a little bit further than I anticipated. But we will be back Thursday to kind of get prepared for Thursday night football between the Washington Commanders. I'm just falling asleep just thinking about it. But anyways, there are other games on Sunday, but Thursday we will talk about Thursday night football, and of course get ready for the rest of the weekend, and possibly talk a little hockey, and possibly talk a little basketball, as both are getting prepared to start their season soon. And folks, don't worry about that. John is just drowning apparently in the water. So that's you okay there, buddy? You all right?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm being
okay.
waterboarded by the next door neighbor at some point, but I survived.
Probably a
Dick Cheney was just fine to see me.
I was going to say probably a Jordan fan, right?
Yeah, Jordan fans are after me all the time.
Oh yeah. But anyway, so we will talk to you on Thursday, folks. Have a great Tuesday. Have a great Wednesday, and folks, please relax. Put the pitchforks down. Have a good day. Put your feet up, and just appreciate life. Stop being angry. We'll talk to you then.